Okay, so you know how sometimes you see something weird, something that just doesn't fit, and your brain kinda glitches for a second? Like a puzzle piece from the wrong box jammed into the picture? That's how it started for me, with the elevator in my building. The building itself isn't anything special, honestly. It's called the Crest View, which sounds way fancier than it is. It's one of those talish, brownish brick buildings you see everywhere, probably built like 50 years ago. Maybe more. We live on the 7th floor. Me, my mom, and my annoying older sister, Chloe. It's fine. Kinda boring, mostly. Except for the elevator. Or, specifically, one of the elevators. There are 2 elevators side by side in the lobby. They look identical. Brushed steel doors, slightly flickering fluorescent lights inside, that weird, slightly musty smell that all old elevators seem to have. One of them, the one on the right, is perfectly normal. Goes up, goes down, stops at all the floors. We have 12 floors, plus L for lobby and B for basement, where the laundry room and storage lockers are. Standard stuff. The panel inside has the buttons arranged in 2 neat columns. L, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 14 buttons total, plus the door open, door close, and the emergency bell nobody ever pushes unless they're messing around. But the elevator on the left, that one's different. For the longest time, I didn't even notice. You just press the button for your floor and zone out, right? Stare at the numbers lighting up. Maybe check your phone even though there's barely any signal inside. But one afternoon, coming home from school with my best friend Leo, I saw it. Leo lives in the building too, down on the 3rd floor. We were heading up, just the 2 of us, and we got the left elevator. I jabbed the 7 button, and Leo hit the 3. As my finger came away from the panel, my eyes kinda snagged on something. Below the B button, where there's usually just blank metal, there was another button. It wasn't like the others. The main floor buttons are round, slightly worn plastic things that glow yellow when you press them. This one was smaller, rectangular, and made of a darker, almost black metal, kind of embedded into the panel itself. It didn't have a number or a letter. Instead, it had this weird symbol etched into it. It looked kind of like a 0, but squashed vertically, like an oval standing on its end, with a single horizontal line cutting right through the middle. It wasn't lit up, and it looked old. Really old. Like it had been there forever, but also like it didn't belong. "Hey, Leo," I said, pointing. "Did you ever see this button before?" Leo leaned in, squinting. He's got glasses that are always sliding down his nose. "Huh? What button?" He followed my finger. "Whoa. Weird. What's that supposed to be?" "No idea," I said. "It looks like a button, right? But for what floor?" He poked it. Nothing happened. No click, no light, nothing. "Maybe it's broken. Or like for maintenance or something?" "Yeah, maybe," I mumbled, but it didn't feel right. Maintenance buttons usually look different, right? They have keys holes or say service access or something official. This just had that weird symbol. The elevator dinged, the doors slid open on the 3rd floor. "Later, Alex," Leo said, grabbing his backpack. "Don't get abducted by the weird button aliens." He grinned and stepped out. Yeah, I replied, watching the doors close. As the elevator started moving again towards the 7th floor, I stared at that strange black button. It felt cold somehow. Not physically cold, but it gave off this vibe. Like looking into really deep, dark water. I had this sudden, stupid urge to press it. Hard. Just to see. But I didn't. Something held me back. Maybe it was Leo's dumb joke, or maybe just the weirdness of it. The elevator reached my floor, the doors opened, and I practically jumped out. I tried to forget about it, but it kept nagging at me. Over the next few days, I made excuses to use the left elevator whenever I could. Sometimes the button was there, sitting below B with its creepy little symbol. Sometimes it wasn't. Just smooth, blank metal where it should have been. That was almost weirder. How could a button just disappear? Was I imagining it? I asked my mom about it one night at dinner. Mom, does the left elevator have, like, a secret floor or something? She looked up from her salad, frowning. What are you talking about, Alex? Secret floor? It's an elevator. Yeah, but there's this weird button sometimes. Below the basement button. It has a weird symbol. Chloe snorted from across the table, scrolling through her phone. You're imagining things, dweeb. Probably just dirt. It's not dirt. It's a button. It's black and metal and dash. Alex, Mom interrupted, her voice calm but firm. There's no extra button. It's just the regular floors. Maybe you saw a reflection or, like Chloe said, some grime. Don't go imagining weird things. I shut up after that. They didn't believe me. Maybe they hadn't noticed because they always used the right elevator. Or maybe they just didn't look. Or maybe the button wasn't always visible to everyone. That thought sent a little shiver down my spine. A few days later, I was waiting for the elevator in the lobby again. Both doors were closed. I pressed the up button, and the light above the left elevator lit up. Bingo. As I waited, Mr. Henderson, the building superintendent, shuffled out of his little office nook behind the mailboxes. Mr. Henderson is, well, he's kind of unsettling all on his own. He's old, really old, with thin white hair combed over his scalp and pale, watery eyes that always seem to be staring at something just past your shoulder. He walks with a slight limp and always wears the same faded gray work uniform, no matter the weather. He doesn't talk much, and when he does, it's usually just a grunt or a complaint about tenants leaving trash bags in the hall. He saw me waiting for the left elevator, and his usual grumpy expression tightened. Using that one, huh? He rasped, his voice like sandpaper. Yeah, I said. It came first. He shuffled closer, leaning on his broom like a staff. He smelled faintly of bleach and dust. Rules about the elevators, kid. You know 'em? I blinked. Rules? Don't jump? Keep your hands inside? He shook his head slowly, his pale eyes fixing on the lit-up arrow above the left elevator door. Specific rules. For this building. For these elevators. He lowered his voice, even though no one else was around. Rule number 1. If the left elevator arrives and you're alone, consider taking the stairs. My stomach did a weird little flip. Why? Just consider it, he muttered, turning away. Safer. Safer from what? I asked, but he was already shuffling back towards his office. He paused at the door, looking back not at me, but at the elevator. Rule number 2, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Never ride the left elevator between midnight and 3 a.m. Never. Not for anything. And then he disappeared into his office, pulling the door shut with a quiet click. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. The doors slid open, revealing the empty, dimly lit box. I hesitated. Consider taking the stairs. 7 flights. Ugh. But Mr. Henderson's weird warning, combined with the disappearing button, it was creepy. Still, it was just the elevator, right? Just a metal box. I stepped inside. The doors slid shut, sealing me in the musty air. My eyes immediately flicked to the panel. And there it was. The small, black, rectangular button with the vertical oval and the line through it. Mocking me from below the B. It seemed darker today, more solid. I pressed the 7. The button glowed yellow. The elevator began its slow ascent. 1, 2, 3. I couldn't take my eyes off the black button. It felt like it was watching me. I wondered what would happen if I pressed it. Would it go down? Would it open onto some hidden maintenance tunnel? Or something else? Mr. Henderson's words echoed in my head. Safer. What wasn't safe about an elevator? What happened between midnight and 3 a.m.? The feeling of wrongness intensified, the air in the elevator suddenly feeling thick and heavy. It was more than just a weird button now. It felt like a warning sign. A doorway to somewhere I wasn't supposed to know about. And part of me, the stupid, curious part, really wanted to open it. The elevator reached the 7th floor. Ding. The doors opened onto my familiar hallway carpet. I practically lunged out, my heart thudding against my ribs. I glanced back before the doors closed. The black button was still there, silent, waiting. I had a feeling this was just the beginning. Something was wrong with the Crestview, something hidden behind scratched steel doors and weird warnings from a creepy old man. And it centered around that impossible button, and the floor it supposedly led to. A floor that shouldn't exist. The next week or so was a weird game of cat and mouse with the elevator. I tried to catch the left one whenever I could, just to see. Sometimes the button was there, sometimes it wasn't. It was completely random, or at least, I couldn't figure out the pattern. Leo started avoiding the left elevator altogether after I told him what Mr. Henderson said. "Dude, that's creepy," he'd said, adjusting his glasses. "Old man Henderson gives me the creeps anyway. If he says don't use it, I'm not using it." Wise choice, probably. But I couldn't let it go. I started paying more attention to the building itself. Did other people notice the button? Did they avoid the left elevator? I watched tenants come and go in the lobby. Most people didn't seem to have a preference, just taking whichever lift arrived first. But I did notice Ms. Gable, from 11B, always waited specifically for the right elevator, even if the left one was already there, doors open. Ms. Gable was nice, kind of quiet, always carried a bunch of library books. She had lived in the building forever, longer even than Mr. Henderson had been working here, according to Mom. Seeing her avoid the left elevator, that felt significant. One afternoon, I was riding the left elevator up. The button was absent this time, much to my frustration, and it stopped on the 4th floor. The doors opened, and a kid I didn't know got in. He looked maybe a year or two younger than me, skinny, with messy brown hair and wide, slightly panicked eyes. He wasn't carrying a backpack or anything. He just stood there, breathing fast, staring straight ahead at the closed doors. He didn't press a button. "Hey," I said. "What floor?" He jumped, startled, and looked at me like he hadn't realized I was there. "Oh, lobby. Please." I reached over and pressed L. The button lit up. We rode down in silence for a few floors. The kid kept glancing nervously at the panel, then back at the doors. "You okay?" I asked finally. He seemed really freaked out. He swallowed hard. "Yeah, fine." He hesitated, then added in a rush. "Just don't ever press the other button. The one with the line." My blood ran cold. "You've seen it too?" He nodded jerkily, not looking at me. My friend. He pressed it. Last week." "What happened?" I whispered, leaning closer. The elevator dinged for the lobby. The doors started to slide open. "He didn't come back," the kid said, his voice trembling. Then he bolted out of the elevator and ran straight out the front doors of the building without looking back. I stood there, stunned, as the elevator doors slid shut again, leaving me alone in the musty silence. He didn't come back. Okay, now I was officially scared. This wasn't just a weird button or a creepy super's ramblings. A kid was missing? Did his parents know? Did they report it? Why hadn't I heard anything? Maybe the kid was lying, just trying to spook me? But his fear seemed real. Way too real. I started researching online. Late at night, hunched over my laptop, I typed in every combination I could think of. Crestview Apartments weird elevator. Building with floor that doesn't exist. Missing kid elevator symbol. Nothing. Just regular apartment listings, news articles about unrelated missing persons cases, dumb creepypastas that weren't nearly as unsettling as what was happening in my own building. It was like the Crestview, and its secret didn't exist outside its own brick walls. Then I tried searching for the symbol itself. That was harder. How do you even describe it? Oval with line through its symbol. Vertical zero line symbol. I scrolled through pages of mathematical symbols, logos, weird mystical signs. Nothing matched exactly. But I did stumble onto some forums. Weird, old-looking forums talking about liminal spaces, hidden places, and anomalies. They used strange terminology, talking about containment procedures, and object classes, and redacted information. It sounded like something out of a video game or a sci-fi movie, but the tone was serious, almost clinical. They talked about places where reality was thin, where things could slip through. Could the button lead to a place like that? One post mentioned specific rules for dealing with spatial anomalies. Things like, do not acknowledge inconsistencies in architecture. Avoid entities exhibiting paradoxical behavior. Report any temporal displacement immediately to Site Command. It sounded crazy, but it also resonated with Mr. Henderson's weird rules and the kid's warning. Maybe Henderson wasn't just a grumpy old man. Maybe he was a custodian in more ways than one. The thought made me even more uneasy. If this was some kind of contained anomaly, as the forums called it, then pressing the button wasn't just about getting lost. It was about breaching containment. What would happen then? What was on that other floor? What happened to the kid who pressed the button? I needed to talk to someone who might know more. Someone who had been here a long time. Ms. Gable. She always avoided the left elevator. She had to know something. The next time I saw her in the hallway, clutching her usual stack of books, I took a deep breath and walked over. Ms. Gable? I started, trying to sound casual. She gave me a small, polite smile. Yes, Alex? I wanted to ask you something about the elevators. Her smile faded slightly. Her eyes flickered towards the elevator bank at the end of the hall. Oh? The left one, I said, lowering my voice. Do you ever use it? She hesitated, adjusting her grip on her books. I prefer the other one, dear. It seems a bit more reliable, don't you think? Reliable how? I pressed gently. Is there something wrong with the left one? Ms. Gable sighed softly, a troubled look crossing her face. She glanced around the empty hallway, then leaned in a little closer. Alex, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Some doors are best left unopened. Some floors are best left unvisited. It's an old building. Old buildings have drafts, places where things get misplaced. Like people? I asked, thinking of the scared kid in the elevator. Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly. She clutched her books tighter. Just be careful, Alex. Stick to the known floors. Don't go looking for things that... Her reaction confirmed it. She knew. She wouldn't say what she knew, but she was scared too. An old building with drafts, places where things get misplaced. That wasn't normal talk. It was code. Just like Mr. Henderson's rules. Rule number 3, unofficially suggested by Ms. Gable, stick to the known floors. But knowing there was danger just made the mystery deeper, more magnetic. The black button wasn't just a curiosity anymore. It was a threat. A locked door hiding something terrible. And the more people warned me away from it, the more I felt this pull, this awful, creeping need to see what was behind it. The thought of the kid who didn't come back echoed in my mind, a chilling counterpoint to my own reckless curiosity. What was down there? Or up there? Or somewhere else entirely? I started having nightmares. Not about monsters or anything specific, just the elevator. Sometimes I was trapped inside, the walls closing in. Sometimes the doors would open onto endless, identical hallways under buzzing fluorescent lights. Sometimes I'd dream I pressed the black button, and the elevator would just fall. Not down, but sideways, tumbling through a void filled with whispers and distorted shapes. I'd wake up sweating, my heart pounding, the musty smell of the elevator lingering in my nostrils. One night I couldn't sleep. The nightmare, the one where the doors opened onto the wrong hallway, felt too real. It was late, way past midnight. Probably closer to 2 a.m. I remembered Mr. Henderson's second rule: never ride the left elevator between midnight and 3 a.m. Why? What happened then? Was the barrier thinner? Was it more active? Driven by a morbid curiosity I couldn't quite control, I slipped out of my room and padded silently down the hallway to the elevator bank. The building was dead quiet, except for the usual hum of the refrigerator from our kitchen and the distant sound of traffic far below. The lights in the hallway were dimmer at night, casting long shadows. I stood in front of the elevators. The arrows were dark. I reached out, hesitated, then pressed the down button. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the light above the left elevator flickered on. It was coming. My pulse quickened. This felt wrong. Dangerous. Every instinct screamed at me to go back to bed, lock my door, hide under the covers. But I was rooted to the spot. Mr. Henderson's warning clashed with the intense urge to finally know. The elevator arrived with a soft, almost reluctant ding. The doors slid open. Empty. Dimly lit. Waiting. I peered inside. My eyes went straight to the panel, and my breath caught in my throat. The black button was there. It looked different tonight, though. It seemed wetter? Almost like it was slick with condensation, even though the air wasn't particularly humid. And was it my imagination, or was there a faint, almost invisible red light pulsing deep within the strange symbol etched on its surface? Never ride the left elevator between midnight and 3 a.m. I should have listened. I really should have listened. But standing there, on the threshold, the mystery felt overwhelming. The need to understand, to see the unseen floor, drowned out the fear. Or maybe it amplified it, twisted it into something else. Something reckless. I took a step inside. The doors slid shut behind me with a sound that felt unnervingly final. The air was colder in here tonight, and the musty smell was stronger, mingled with something else, something metallic and faintly unpleasant, like old pennies or dried blood. The faint red pulse within the black button seemed to throb in time with my own racing heartbeat. I hadn't pressed anything yet, but it felt like the choice had already been made. The elevator knew where I wanted to go. I found myself staring at the black button, the one with the symbol. That vertical oval with the line through it. It pulsed faintly, that weird, deep red glow I thought I'd imagined. It was definitely real. It was like a tiny, sleeping eye, slowly waking up. The air in the elevator felt heavy, charged, like before a thunderstorm. The metallic smell was stronger now, sharp and coppery. My hand was shaking as I reached out. This was it. No more wondering, no more guessing. Ignore rule number 1, consider the stairs. Ignore rule number 2, never ride between midnight and 3 a.m. Ignore Ms. Gable's warning, stick to the known floors. Ignore the story of the kid who didn't come back. My finger touched the cold, slightly slick surface of the black button. For a second, nothing happened. Then I pushed. It didn't click like the other buttons. It depressed slightly, smoothly, silently into the panel. And the red light inside the symbol flared, just for an instant, painting the inside of the elevator in a brief, bloody wash. Then it went dark again. But the button stayed pressed in. The elevator didn't move up or down. Instead, there was a low, grinding sound from somewhere deep below, or maybe above. A shudder ran through the floor. The lights flickered violently, then went out completely, plunging me into absolute darkness. Panic surged in my throat. I choked back a scream. The only light was the faint, residual glow of the number 7 button I hadn't even pressed on this trip. It faded slowly, leaving me utterly blind. The grinding noise intensified, vibrating through the soles of my shoes. It didn't feel like the elevator was moving along its normal track. It felt sideways, unstable, like it was being dragged off course. I stumbled, reaching out, my hands hitting the cold metal walls. How long did this last? Seconds? Minutes? It felt like an eternity, lost in the dark, listening to the groaning protest of metal and the heavy, unnatural thrumming that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Then, abruptly, the movement stopped. The grinding ceased. Silence crashed down, thick and suffocating. Nothing happened. No ding, no doors opening. Just blackness. And the silence. It was a heavy silence, heavier than just the absence of noise. It felt like it was pressing in on me. Hesitantly, I felt my way along the wall until I found the control panel. My fingers brushed over the familiar round buttons, then found the indented rectangle of the black button. It was still pressed in. I fumbled for the door open button and pushed it. Nothing. I pushed it again, harder. Still nothing. I tried the lobby button, my floor button, any button. None of them lit up. None of them worked. Okay. Panic time. Real panic time. Hello? I called out, my voice sounding small and shaky in the darkness. Is anyone there? Only the oppressive silence answered. I banged on the doors. Help! I'm stuck! The sound was dull, muffled, as if the elevator was encased in something thick. Just as I was about to start seriously freaking out, maybe try prying the doors open, there was a faint click. A sliver of light appeared as the doors didn't slide open, but rather peeled apart. Slowly. Unevenly. Like they were resisting. The light filtering in wasn't the familiar yellowish fluorescent glow of the Crestview hallways. It was dim, gray, and flickered badly, casting jerky shadows. The doors groaned open just enough for me to squeeze through. I hesitated. What was out there? Where was I? But staying in the dead, dark elevator felt even worse. Taking a deep breath that tasted like dust and damp concrete, I slipped through the gap. I wasn't in a hallway. I was in something else. It looked like a service corridor, but wrong. The ceiling was low, oppressively so, with thick pipes and conduits snaking across it, dripping some dark, viscous liquid into puddles on the grimy concrete floor. The walls were stained and cracked, and the flickering gray light came from. There were no apartment doors here. Just solid, featureless walls broken occasionally by heavy, rusting metal doors marked with faded stencils. The stencils weren't numbers, but strange combinations of letters and symbols like Sector 7G Omega, or just that same vertical oval with the line through it that was on the button. It was a symbol for this place. I looked back at the elevator. The doors had closed again, seamlessly. There was no button to call it back. Just a blank, stained wall where it had been. My escape route was gone. My stomach plummeted. I was trapped here. Wherever here was. I started walking cautiously down the corridor. My footsteps echoed unnervingly in the buzzing silence. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions, curving slightly out of sight. Which way to go? Did it matter? Every few yards I passed one of those heavy metal doors. I tried one. Locked tight. Bolted from the other side, maybe? As I walked, I started noticing inconsistencies. Weird details that made my skin crawl. In one section, the concrete floor seemed to ripple slightly, like water. In another, the shadows cast by the flickering lights seemed too deep, twisting into shapes that didn't match the objects casting them. And the dripping sound from the pipes, sometimes it sounded almost like whispering. Just random, sibilant sounds on the edge of hearing. Then I heard it. A real sound, distinct from the buzzing and dripping. A faint, rhythmic scraping noise. It was coming from further down the corridor, around the curve. Scrape, drag, scrape, drag. My heart hammered against my ribs. Should I hide? Run the other way? Curiosity, that damned stupid curiosity, won out again. I flattened myself against the cold, damp wall and edged forward, peering around the slight bend. Down the corridor, maybe 50 feet away, one of the heavy metal doors stood slightly ajar. The scraping sound was coming from inside. Scrape, drag, pause, scrape, drag. It sounded like something heavy being pulled across rough concrete. And then I saw him. Or I saw part of him. Standing in the sliver of doorway, partially obscured, was a figure. They were wearing what looked like a heavily stained, dark gray uniform, similar to Mr. Henderson's but bulkier, almost like old-fashioned coveralls. They were hunched over, their back to me. I couldn't see their face. They seemed to be focused intently on something inside the room. This had to be character number 5. Not a resident, not someone from my world. Someone from here. The figure wasn't making the scraping sound. The sound was coming from deeper within the room. The figure shifted slightly, and I saw what they were holding. A long pole, like a hook or a prod. They jabbed it forward into the darkness of the room, followed by a wet, tearing sound and a low, guttural hiss that wasn't human. The scraping started again, faster this time. What was in there? What was this person doing? Was this some kind of containment procedure? Like the forums talked about? Was this person a guard? A caretaker? A prisoner? I must have made a noise, maybe gasped or shuffled my feet. The figure froze. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, they began to turn around. I couldn't move, paralyzed by fear. I didn't want to see their face. I had a terrible feeling that seeing their face would be the worst thing possible. The head turned. It was covered by a heavy, helmet-like apparatus, pitted and rusted, with thick, grimy lenses where the eyes should be. No face visible, just those dark, unreflective circles staring right at me. They didn't seem surprised to see me. They just tilted their helmeted heads slightly, a gesture that was somehow infinitely menacing. Then they raised one hand, beckoning me forward with a slow curl of their gloved fingers. A silent invitation. Come closer. See what's in the room. See what we do here. My mind screamed, run. I finally broke free from the paralysis, spun around, and sprinted back the way I came, slipping on the damp floor, ignoring the pulsating shadows and whispering drips. I didn't know where I was running, only that I had to get away from that figure, away from that room, away from this impossible, horrifying floor. I ran blindly, desperate, tears streaming down my face, expecting hands to grab me from the shadows at any second. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like jelly. I ran right into a dead end. A solid wall of stained concrete. Trapped. I sank to the floor, gasping for breath, listening. Silence. No scraping, no footsteps following me. Just the maddening buzz of the faulty lights and the drip, drip, drip from the pipes above. I was alone again. Alone in this nightmare place. And I had no idea how to get back. The shocking realization hit me. This floor wasn't just non-existent on the building directory. Maybe it wasn't supposed to exist at all. And I was stuck in it. I don't know how long I sat there, huddled against the cold wall at the dead end, hyperventilating. It felt like hours. The buzzing lights flickered, the pipes dripped, the faint smell of decay hung heavy in the air. Every shadow seemed to move. Every distant sound made me jump. I kept expecting the figure in the helmet to appear at the end of the corridor, pole in hand. But nothing happened. It was just me and the oppressive wrongness of the place. Where even was I? Was this underneath the basement? Between floors? Another dimension bleeding into our own? The SCP forum stuff didn't seem so crazy anymore. This felt exactly like one of those contained anomalies, a tear in reality hidden away inside an ordinary apartment building. And I just walked right into it. The kid who didn't come back, was he still down here somewhere? Or had he become whatever that thing was that the helmeted figure was prodding in the room? I had to find a way out. Staying here wasn't an option. I forced myself to stand up on shaky legs. Okay, the elevator was gone. Dead end this way. So, back the other way. Past the room with the figure? No way. Was there another path? I looked around the dead end more closely. Just solid concrete, pipes running along the top and bottom. But wait. Down near the floor, behind a tangle of thick, dusty cables, wasn't the wall perfectly flat. There was a seam. A very faint vertical line, almost invisible in the grime. My heart leaped. A door? I pulled at the cables, coughing as dust filled the air. Behind them, yes, it was definitely a door. No handle, no hinges visible, just a perfectly flush rectangle set into the concrete, barely distinguishable from the wall itself. How did you open it? I pushed against it. Nothing. I ran my hands over the surface. Cold, smooth, seamless except for that faint outline. I knocked. The sound was solid, heavy. Then my fingers brushed against something near the bottom edge. A tiny indentation, almost exactly the same shape and size as the black button in the elevator. The vertical oval with the line through it. No way. Could it be? With trembling fingers, I pressed the tiny symbol etched into the hidden door. There was a low click, and a section of the concrete wall beside the seam slid inward slightly, revealing a recessed handle. I grabbed it and pulled. The hidden door swung inward silently, smoothly, revealing darkness. Pitch black. But it felt different from the darkness in the dead elevator. This felt empty, like stepping into a void. There was no sound, no smell, just absolute nothingness beyond the threshold. This was insane. Stepping through could lead anywhere. Or nowhere. But staying in the corridor with the helmeted figure and the thing in the room, that wasn't an option. Taking one last, terrified look back down the flickering, buzzing corridor, still empty, thankfully, I stepped through the hidden doorway into the blackness. Not like in the elevator, not sideways or tumbling. Just falling. Straight down, through absolute black, silent space. There was no wind resistance, no sense of speed, just the stomach-lurching sensation of endless descent. I couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything, couldn't feel anything except the falling itself. How long did it last? Impossible to say. It felt like forever, and also like no time at all. Just as I was starting to wonder if I would fall forever, my feet hit solid ground. Hard. I stumbled, catching myself before I fell completely. I was standing in the lobby? No, not quite. It looked like the lobby of the Crestview, but older. Dirtier. The faux marble floor tiles were cracked and stained. The potted plants were dead and withered. The mailboxes looked rusted, some hanging open. The air was stale and thick with dust. And it was completely silent. No traffic noise from outside, no hum of electricity. Nothing. I turned around. Behind me wasn't a hidden concrete door. It was the left elevator. Its doors were closed, the steel slightly dented and tarnished. Above it, the floor indicator light wasn't lit. I scrambled over and pushed the up button. Nothing. I pushed the down button. Nothing. The elevator was dead. Panic started bubbling up again. Was I still trapped? Was this just another part of the wrong floor? I ran to the front doors. Heavy glass doors, just like the real lobby, but covered in grime. I pushed. Locked. I rattled the handles. Solid. I looked through the dirty glass. Outside wasn't the familiar street. It was gray. Just flat, featureless gray, like a thick fog pressing right up against the glass. No cars, no buildings, no sky. Just gray nothing. Okay, this was definitely not the real lobby. It was a copy. A degraded, dead copy. Where was I? I looked around desperately. The superintendent's office door was there, behind the mailboxes. Maybe. I ran over and tried the handle. Locked. Of course. Then I saw it. Lying on the floor, just in front of the dead left elevator, was a single sheet of paper. It looked like a standard maintenance log sheet, maybe? But it was yellowed and brittle. I picked it up carefully. Most of it was filled with dense, typed text using codes and jargon I didn't understand. Phrases like, temporal shear detected sector 7G Omega, increased biosignatures class 4 entity, stabilizers failing, containment risk elevated. But at the bottom, someone had scrawled a handwritten note in messy, urgent letters. It said, Rule number 4, copies are flawed. Look for the seam. Do not trust reflections. Henderson, Cycle 347. Copies are flawed. Look for the seam. What did that mean? I looked around the dead lobby again. It looked identical to the real one, just older and creepier. Where was the seam? Was it like the hidden door? I started examining the walls, the floor, running my hands over surfaces. Nothing. Do not trust reflections. I glanced at the grimy glass of the front doors. I could vaguely see my own reflection, pale and scared. It looked normal. What was I not supposed to trust? Then I looked back at the elevators. The right-hand elevator. The normal one. Its doors were also closed, tarnished like the left. But were they reflecting the dead lobby accurately? I walked closer. The reflection was dim, distorted by the grime on the steel. But as I got nearer, I saw it. The reflection showed the lobby, yes, but in the reflection, the front doors weren't blocked by gray fog. They showed the street outside. Dimly, but it was there. Cars. Buildings. Like a window into the real world. The reflection wasn't a reflection. It was something else. A view? A way out? But the note said not to trust reflections. Was it a trick? I looked back at the handwritten note. Rule number 4. Copies are flawed. Look for the seam. Maybe the reflection was the flaw. The seam between this dead copy and the real thing? What choice did I have? Go back through the dead elevator that didn't work? Try to find another hidden door? Or trust the reflection that showed the way out? I took a deep breath and reached out towards the surface of the right-hand elevator door, towards the reflection of the street outside. My fingers touched the cold metal. Nothing happened. It was just a reflection, right? But the note. I pushed my hand against the reflection, against the image of the outside world trapped in the grimy steel. And my hand went through. There was no resistance. Just coldness, then noise. Traffic. Car horns. People talking. I gasped, pulling my hand back instinctively. It came back fine. I looked at the elevator door. Still just a grimy metal surface showing a dim reflection. But I knew now. It wasn't a reflection. It was a portal. A seam. Taking another shaky breath, I closed my eyes and lunged forward, pushing my whole body into the surface of the right elevator door. There was a stomach-twisting lurch, a blast of normal city noise, and suddenly I was stumbling forward, not out of an elevator, but seemingly out of thin air, right into the middle of the real lobby of the Crestview. I landed hard on the clean, polished floor tiles. Bright afternoon sunlight streamed through the spotless front doors, showing the busy street outside. People were milling around, checking mail, waiting for the elevators. The normal sounds and smells of the building filled the air. It was real. I was back. Someone gasped. "Whoa, kid! You okay?" A woman helped me up. I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost. My clothes were covered in dust and grime. My face was streaked with tears and dirt. I think so," I stammered, looking wildly around. Everything looked normal. Perfectly, blessedly normal. The left elevator stood there, doors closed, looking completely ordinary. The right elevator dinged and opened, letting out Miss Gable, who gave me a worried look but hurried on her way. Then I saw Mr. Henderson leaning on his broom near his office, watching me. His expression was unreadable, those pale eyes seeming to see right through me. He knew. He knew where I'd been. He gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod, then turned and shuffled back into his office, pulling the door shut. I scrambled to the elevator bank and jabbed the up button for the right elevator. I wasn't going near the left one ever again. As I waited, my eyes flicked to the panel between the two elevators, where the up and down buttons were. And I noticed something I'd never seen before. A tiny, almost invisible plaque, right below the buttons. It was made of the same dark metal as the strange button inside the left elevator. Etched onto it, in small, neat letters, were the words, "Notice, use of auxiliary temporal lift Omega is strictly prohibited for non-designated personnel. Reality anchors must be engaged prior to activation. Transdimensional contamination protocols are in effect. Management assumes no liability for spatial or existential displacement. Report irregularities to Site Supervisor." Site Supervisor. Henderson? Auxiliary Temporal Lift Omega. That's what it was. Not just a floor, but a lift through time? Dimensions? And the symbol, it must be the symbol for Omega. The right elevator arrived. I got in, pressing 7 with a shaky hand. As the doors closed, I looked back at the lobby, at the left elevator sitting there silently. It looked so normal now. Innocuous. But I knew what it was. I knew what was hidden behind its doors, activated by that black button. It's contained, maybe, for now. But the seam is there. The button is there sometimes. The other place, the Omega level, is still connected. Still waiting. And I can't shake the feeling that something might eventually slip through. Or that someone, like the figure in the helmet, might decide to come looking for the kid who got away. The crest view isn't boring anymore. It's terrifying. Because the elevator in my building goes to a floor that shouldn't exist, and I know what's there.